Have you ever felt humiliated or been afraid of other people possibly thinking poorly of you and being humiliated in the future? Have you been bullied? Man, today's guest, he was bullied, he was beaten, he was humiliated. His own family told him he was too weak to succeed, and he believed him until one day he didn't. And he started to make up his own narrative. And he started to believe in himself and tell himself positive stories. And he didn't tell anyone in his family about what he was doing. And he became a 12-time national championship boxer. His name is Cam F. Awesome, and his story is remarkable. And it's going to teach you how the way you talk about yourself makes everything in your reality. If you love feeling like your best self, hit that subscribe button. Welcome to the Good Mood Revolution. Today's guest is an awesome dude, somebody I've wanted to talk to for a long time. But his story, going back to school age, he was bullied as a kid. And he was kind of afraid, he said, even to go outside. And he took that and became one of the greatest boxers in the nation. He has 12 national championships, 3 Olympic trial championships. His name is Cam. His last name is Awesome. And I'm so excited to have him on Good Mood Revolution. Cam, what's up, man?
Hey, man. First of all, I love the name of your podcast.
I appreciate that, dude. Yeah, we got to be in a good mood.
Yeah, good vibes, man. It's contagious.
Well, I've been so excited to hear your story because I know it's a remarkable story of resilience. Can you kind of take us back? What was it like as a little kid being bullied and kind of, what was going on with that?
You know how like you hear people talk about their childhood and how they were like, they fought everyone on the block and they're that really tough guy. That wasn't me. I was very non-confrontational. And there was a kid who lived on the end of my block that would pretty much beat me up every time he saw me. And I was in 4th grade. He had slammed my head in a brick wall and I got sent to the hospital to like get checked on for a concussion. And after that happened, my school would release me 10 minutes early so I could, like, school got out at 3. They released me at 2:50 so I could get home. And because of that, I was always like afraid all the time. I didn't know what anxiety was, but he ended up going to a different school the following year. I was still afraid all the time. And in middle school, I would volunteer in the nurse's office because I was afraid to be in the lunchroom around all those people. I didn't know how to word it, but I thought if I'm on edge and I'm prepared for that thing that's going to happen that I don't know when's going to happen or what it's going to be, then I'll be safer. That was my kind of thought process. Was also even weirder about it. I was more afraid of the humiliation behind it than the pain of it.
So what happened? So you're in the nurse's office, you're going home early, you're kind of afraid of what could go wrong or what other people could do to you or what that feels like if you're picked on. And how did you progress from there?
I was always avoiding that confrontation. And then in 9th grade, I got into an altercation with a girl. She hit me a bunch. I did not hit a girl. So I got beat up by a girl and it was embarrassing. And
what'd she hit you for, man? What'd you say?
Bro, it was the silliest thing. And you think about like 9th grade, I sit in the back of the class. I'm not normally paying attention. So she was blocking the door. Everyone's pushing her out of the way to get to class. And someone knocked over her books. But because I was the last person walking out the classroom, she grabbed me and was like, pick up my stuff. And I was like, no. So I just left, and apparently they built her up and she found me and she started throwing punches at me. And I just grabbed her by the arms and waited till someone came to broke it up. But the idea of the word of Cam getting beat up by a girl echoing in the hallways was enough for me to want to do something. And I realized like no one cared. Like when I would explain this to my family, they're like, go out and fight the bully. It's like, cause that's their concept. I was like, okay, I figured if I joined the boxing gym and looked like a boxer, people would leave me alone. So I joined the gym with the intentions of only doing the workout so I could look like a boxer. That was it.
And you didn't pick up her books because you could have picked up her book, right? I mean, Somebody knocked her
Yeah.
book down. Somebody knocked her book down. She's upset. She asked you, well, she was rude about it. She's like, pick up my book. She's telling you what to do. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
not with that. Maybe if she'd been nice about it, you would have picked up the book. That was a pivotal moment in your whole life. This girl getting her book knocked down and you being just there by happenstance, not knocking it down like that. That's almost like a God moment. The universe, God brings this moment into your life to then move you into the boxing ring, which obviously is where you were supposed to be.
That's a good way to put it. I love that perspective on it. But yeah, I love the fact that I made it to the boxing gym. The thing about boxing for me was I went with just the intentions of looking like a boxer so I could feel safe. But to do that, I thought the harder I worked out, the faster it would happen. So I ended up getting in better shape than all the other boxers. I lost all the weight. The coach was like, hey, you're in such good shape. I think you're ready to get in the ring and spar. And I was like, oh, no, thanks. I don't think my mom's going to let me. I was 16 and I thought that mattered and everyone laughed. And I was like, I'm joking. I'll get a mouthpiece. That's how I ended up in the ring for the first time, like in my first sparring session.
So you were showing up every day, working out like crazy, right? Like just working out.
Even when I was too tired to work out, I would sit and watch the other boxers to try to figure out boxing because I thought it was like a puzzle. And what I didn't realize was there were like really talented boxers in the gym. They never worked out as hard as everyone else. They were just better than everyone else.
Right.
When I started to spar, my first sparring session wasn't memorable, but I was so afraid to get hit that I did a bunch of moving. And I felt like I burned more calories in my sparring session than I do any other workout. So I then got addicted to sparring. This is the first time I was kind of a part of a team. I know boxing is not a team, but everyone loved sparring me because I was a big body. I did a lot of moving. I didn't throw a lot of punches, and you can hit me as hard as you want.
Okay.
Like,
so
everyone liked sparring me.
Yeah. And so then now it's like you're starting to get more practice and more reps, right? Than everybody else.
Yeah. And of course, I still have no interest in being a boxer. It was like the best workout. And I felt like I was a part of the team and I would never miss the gym because I was afraid someone might be showing up to the gym that day to spar me. And what if I missed the gym? I didn't want to let them down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're not missing a day. You're there 4 hours a day. Now, where does this end up going? When do you start getting into matches?
My coach said I was ready for my first match, and I didn't tell anyone in my family because they didn't think I was the boxer type. Yeah. My dad told me I had weak wrists and I wouldn't be a good fighter. Who they hear is that's the guy who just got beat up by a girl.
So they still saw you. They still saw you as the kid who got beat up by the girl, even as you're transforming your body and you're spending 4 hours a day at the boxing gym.
The people closest to you will be the last people to notice the changes you're making.
They were kind of happening gradually over time, and they didn't even notice because the changes were so gradual. Yeah,
and I didn't tell them about that I was boxing because I didn't need them to poo in my parade, per se.
Yep, I'm with you.
And I've learned sometimes you just got to keep your business to yourself. I was so delusional because I was so good at sparring that my first fight, I was so much more experienced. It was my first fight. It was also my opponent's first fight. But I was so prepared that I easily won because I was in better shape and I had been sparring so much.
Yeah.
I realized the point system because I avoid confrontation and I would move around so much until my opponent got tired. The scoring system, if you hit me, you get a point. If I hit you, I get a point. If you can't hit me, you can't win. So I took a completely different approach at boxing where most people think it's hit and not get hit. Mine is don't get hit. And if I can, possibly, I might hit you. It was so secondary to throw a punch, but for me, it was defense was always number one. And because I knew how the point system worked, I interviewed the judges. I asked the judges like what they are looking for in a fight because it's a subjective scoring system.
Right.
And I only worked on those things.
Oh, smart.
So that I started boxing in 11th grade. My senior year of high school, living in New York, my parents moved from New York to Florida. I didn't really have a lot of friends in New York, and I realized I became confident in the boxing gym because I was a part of the team, but I was still that unconfident person in school. But when I got to Florida, I realized I could just pretend to be whoever I wanted and everyone would just believe it. And just like it's the hardest to change around the people who know you,
Yep.
when you move somewhere new, you have a complete fresh start. So I pretended to be this like outgoing extrovert and everyone believed it. It worked. Where the magic happened was my boxing gym was 6 miles away from my high school. And I had to take a 6 mile walk to get to the gym every day. And now it sounds crazy, but like back then I knew the scoring system and I knew if I just could box, I'd be very good at it. And if the only thing in the way of my dream is a 6 mile walk, I'm going to take that walk. It was a 3 hour walk every day after school. And this is before we had music like that. I had an MP3 player with batteries. You remember those?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I couldn't always afford batteries, so I would have these 3 hour walks with no music. So I would just make up stories. And I was the protagonist in all these stories. When I was walking home from school in elementary school, 10 minutes early, I knew why. I knew it was because I was afraid. And I'm walking home like I'm a coward, I'm afraid, and I lived that life. When I was walking to the boxing gym in high school, I was saying positive things about myself for 3 hours a day. And I found there's a correlation between how highly I spoke of myself and how well I did in the gym that evening. And the better I did in the gym that evening, the more excited I was for this walk. In a complete new environment where no one knows who I am, my confidence built into this unstoppable thing. And within 2 years of boxing, I became the #1 heavyweight in the country.
Woo!
Yeah.
Dude, you became Cam Awesome.
Yeah. Well, not yet.
Happiness isn't just a feeling, it's a skill. And it starts with 5 pillars: authentic relationships, thriving fitness, achieving goals, conquering bad moods, and then choosing good ones. I'll teach you how to master all 5 pillars in my one-on-one happiness coaching. Let's talk. Grab a free 30-minute happiness consultation on my calendar at mattoneal.com/coaching. This was a very powerful story that you just shared, because I want our listener to think about this, that when you were leaving 10 minutes early from school because you were afraid of getting bullied, you were down on yourself and thinking you weren't worthwhile. And then when you had that time to walk to the gym, you were, it sounds like it was intentional, but you were intentionally telling yourself how awesome you were, how great you were. You were creating these stories where you were a winner. And these mental pictures were coming true. This is the way that life works. So I always say that the more time we can spend visualizing our future, it's the highest, I call it ROT, return on time. There is not a higher return on time that you can get than spending time visualizing your ideal future. And you spent 3 hours a day visualizing your ideal future. Like the return on that turns into national champion. Like that's freaking crazy. And so if you're listening to this, 3 hours a day is a lot. I mean, if you could dedicate 3 hours a day, you could probably become the best in the country at something like Cam. Of course, you got to put in the work, like Cam put in the work. But maybe it's just 60 seconds a day. Could you spend 60 seconds a day visualizing how great your future could be? And that could change your life. I mean, what do you think about that, Cam?
Yeah, I didn't understand what I was doing when I was doing it. So I don't want to make it seem like I was this 17-year-old visionary. I was just making up stories. It just happened to be self-centered.
Mm-hmm.
And
where you were winning.
Yeah, I was winning in all of these fights. And the thing is, I talked about winning so much that I expected myself to win.
Our language creates our reality.
Yes.
This is why, man, anytime I hear somebody with self-deprecating humor, I'm like, oh, like I know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing, but when you put yourself down, even though everyone's laughing, and it is kind of funny, you're creating a negative perception of yourself to your own subconscious. Like you really have to watch the words you say about yourself and the things you think about yourself.
Oh, yeah. I went from being that bully kid to I was captain of the USA national team and traveling to other countries, representing Team USA, fighting the number one boxers in other countries. I was the number one boxer, won nationals in 08, 09, 2010, 2011. 2012, I won the U.S. Olympic trials to represent the U.S. in the London Olympics. And then I was kicked off the Olympic team for not sending in my drug testing paperwork.
Man, so that might have been one of the gifts though, right? You were talking about how you ended up seeing, so maybe it wasn't self-sabotage. Maybe it was an event that happened for your benefit in a way that you couldn't have benefited otherwise. Because becoming humble is one of the greatest gifts we can possibly receive.
Oh, I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree strongly. My whole life is based off of that. So, when the comment said, "I bet he's humble now,"
yeah,
it didn't sound like a positive thing.
Right.
Have you ever looked up the definition of humble? When I found out the definition of it, it changed the way I look at myself.
Having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance.
Matt, do you have a kid?
I have 4.
4. Give me the third one. What's their name?
Kelly.
Would you wish this definition on Kelly?
No.
Okay, maybe there's a second definition.
Lower in dignity or importance.
Oh, does that sound great? So, Matt, I'll save you the trouble. The Latin root word for humility is humilis, which is lowly.
Yeah, it's so like it means the dirt, right? Like the earth.
Yeah. So let's say you're killing it in the podcast world, right?
Uh-huh.
You run into someone who's not. What do we usually do in this situation? We lower ourselves, not even to where they are, a little bit lower so they can feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask, Matt, who does being humble benefit? Who does it serve?
So I'm a very religious guy, and that's where I think humbleness and humility to God ultimately. This is where it's a powerful thing for me, and where I really lean into humility. All your gifts, you didn't implant those in yourself. Of course, you went to the gym every day and you worked really hard, but ultimately you were given gifts by God that you helped to bring out, but they were all just given to you. And that's where some humbleness and humility can come in.
I respect that. But if I walk to the gym and I do all the work to be that great, I'm not going to pretend I'm not.
Sure.
It doesn't serve anyone. Definitely not me in a combat sport.
No, so, that's a good point. And I love where this conversation's going. I love all of this idea. So that's a false humility, right? That's a knowing you're great, but then pretending you're not. That's not a way to live. In fact, like
knowing you're great and pretending you're not.
Yeah, that's a false humility. Like a real humility is to say, "Thank you, God. Thank you for this. Thank you for these gifts. I know I couldn't do it without you, and I know I couldn't do it without what you've given me today. In fact, I might not even be alive tomorrow. So if I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to say thank you again." That's the kind of humility that I like to live in. But I don't want to go to somebody and then like, I see what you're saying too. Like I also don't want to make anyone feel less than. So when you were saying if someone else was lower on a ranking, I don't want to go ahead and be. I wouldn't want to make them feel bad.
What a moral stance to have pity. Because if you're doing better than me, Matt, I need to know, and I need to know how and why, so I can implement that in my life. So what you do could serve me, because I don't see it as a competition. When I see you have something that I don't, Matt, I think, oh, it's possible. So if you're up here and I'm up here, don't come down here. Bring me up to where you are.
That's beautiful. So how can our listener start to own their greatness? How did you get your greatness back, where you were like, all right, I'm not going to be this humble guy. I'm going to own my confidence and like, I'm a winner. I'm a champion. How did you get back into that mindset?
The first thing I had to realize was no one cared. No one cares about your problems. Yes, people care about you, but no one really cares about your problems. Before the Olympics started, people forgot that I wasn't going. And I looked around, I was like, oh, I can just continue to be the victim and woe me. And it wasn't really an offense. And I could have sent an email, blah, blah, blah. I had to just take accountability, move forward with that. Next thing I had to do was realize I had to believe in myself, even if it made other people feel bad. And just because I think highly of me has no reflection on how I feel about you, Matt.
Mm.
I could think you're great and I could think I'm great too.
Yeah.
There's enough greatness for everything.
Absolutely.
So I decided to believe in myself, I would have to be fully committed. So I went out and I legally changed my last name to Awesome.
Yeah. By the way, I love it. Freaking love your last name change. And you are awesome, dude. You are.
Thanks. You too, man.
I appreciate it. I haven't changed my last name yet, but maybe we'll be brothers because I love that last name. And
it's welcoming.
And if you're listening to this, dude, it is totally amazing to call yourself awesome and to say that you're feeling awesome and that you're doing awesome. This is a great message. So now you're getting your mindset back. You started to recognize that when you moved to Florida, you were like making up all these amazing hero stories. And that was like one of your superpowers, was thinking so highly of yourself.
Yeah. So here's another thing that happened. I got to go back to New York to walk for high school. So I got to go like 2 weeks before the end of the school year. And there's no one I was really looking forward to seeing or hanging out, but I went back to flex on them. Like I got abs, I was in shape, I was confident, and I couldn't wait to show it off. And the second I walked in out of high school, I reverted into the unconfident, anxious, chubby 16-year-old I used to be.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah, that happens at family reunions too, that we kind of revert into where, we can leave the family and go off on our own and become this amazing person. And we get right back into the family dynamics and we move into that old pecking order that we used to be in.
Yeah. And so I think it's very important to leave your environment. You can always come back, but leave your environment to fully become who you're able to be without the perceptions of other people. So during my suspension, I saw this quote: "I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am."
Okay.
I'll do it one more time. I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. Because I don't know what you think. I am who I think you think I am.
Great. I'm with it.
So what I realized is when I was in Florida, I thought everyone thought I was this confident and cool guy. I was the same person. It was just how I carried myself. When I went back to New York, I knew who they expected me to be, and I felt like I owed it to them to fulfill that role. And I left New York and I was like, I'll never go back. So during my suspension, I realized it's all mental. Nothing, reality, you create your own reality, so none of it matters. So I just started pumping positive things in my head all the time. I would listen to rap music, specifically freestyle rap, because it's the only place in life it's completely okay to talk about how amazing you are. I got all the girls, I got all the cars, I got all the money. I'm better than everybody else. I'll take your woman from you. Like that level of like narcissism almost. I programmed that in myself to believe in myself blindly. And I think, and it sounds crazy, but I think the problem falls on the other end. There are all these books about like shutting out your ego and like being more open. No, I think people need to believe more in themselves, think they're capable of more. And I don't like the term humble because it does have religious context, and I love that it brings other people power and joy. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on anyone's parade. Yeah. Especially when it comes to humility. So I don't really like sharing that one that much because I'm trying to find a way to do it.
You're doing so good with it.
I just want to come off as respectful because the whole idea is like, I want people to feel good. I don't want I don't want to undo something that someone believes that's beneficial to them.
Yeah. Ever feel anxious, upset, or maybe like something's missing? The problem is never your external circumstances. It's always your internal mood. In my best-selling book, Good Mood Revolution, Igniting the Power of Conscious Happiness, I teach you the exact methods to own your moods and control your best life. Go on Amazon today and get yourself a copy, because your best life can't wait. There's a guy named David Hawkins, and he mapped out the human consciousness, which was human potential. And the lowest emotions we've discussed already. You had fear. That was one of the low emotions. So you also had some shame, that humility, like maybe people are going to judge me and I'm going to be judged and I'm going to be humiliated. And those really low emotions don't feel super good. And then the rap music, where we're talking about like stealing somebody's woman or having the cars and having the money and I'm awesome. That's these are the emotions of desire and anger and pride. And that feels so much better when we desire things and we go get them and then we feel really proud of ourselves. We have all this bravado. That feels amazing. And yet that's only level 8 of a possible 16 on Hawkins's levels. Because before we get to that pride, before we get to that feeling that I am freaking awesome, that when we get there, we're like, this is the pinnacle. This is what it's all about. Like, this is what it's all about. And then we get humbled. And if we get humbled and we don't lose our own self-confidence, that internal self-confidence, which you lost a little bit of that internal self-confidence, but we get humbled and remain with that internal self-confidence, we can continue to progress up the levels. And the highest levels are about love. And ultimately, we just want to love everybody, the people that are making mistakes, forgive the people that have harmed us. And as we love everybody, including ourselves, that feels even better than being prideful. And eventually, being prideful starts to hurt people's feelings. And you're like, that's not a very loving way to be. And you kind of drop it. Doesn't mean you drop your confidence. It just means you drop the bravado.
Yeah. And I think, so even in like stand-up comedy, when a comic starts doing comedy, girl, boy, doesn't matter. A lot of times it's inappropriate jokes, it's F-bombs, it's curse words, because in the very beginning of it, you don't know what's funny and you're looking for shock, humor, or reaction.
And it works. It's a quick laugh, right?
And it works. It works. And that's where I'm getting to. You have to have that before you can actually start developing good joke writing.
Yeah.
So when we talk about confidence, you are going to get to the bravado. Those are your dick jokes. It's the bravado.
It works. And it works.
It works.
Yeah.
It works. It will get you in the ring. It will make you think you should win, but you still have to put in the work in order for it to be effective.
Yeah. And then eventually you can get to authentic confidence. And authentic confidence no longer needs to prove or show off or show people that it's great. You already know I am great, and I don't have to say it. And that's a whole nother level of confidence. Now that's like how I want to live. But also, if I get knocked down and I fall below pride, of course, my step back is going to be back to bravado to get to that point to then hopefully get into authentic confidence again.
Actually, I think once you enter authentic confidence and you understand, I think it's so internal, like on a core level. Once you hit that authentic confidence, even if you lose everything, you know what it takes to get there. And you're like, oh, I can get back. When I got suspended, it wasn't, oh no, I'll never get the ranking points. I knew I could. I just knew it would suck.
It's going to take so much work, like crazy work, right?
That's the hardest part about a loss is not even the loss itself. It's how long it's going to take to reprove yourself.
I'm a huge Detroit Lions fan. I grew up in Michigan.
I'm sorry about that.
And man, they worked so hard. They overcame so much this year, and they were crying, losing their playoff game, knowing that this was the first season in the history of the franchise they'd ever won 15 games, and like how much they had to sacrifice to win 15 games, only to lose in a playoff game. And you have to start over at the beginning next year, and you have to work just as hard again. It's crazy.
Those stats no longer matter.
It's crazy. It's so much work. It's so much work. And that's why sometimes, like, that's why I think I look at the Chiefs, and even though they didn't win the Super Bowl, to get back to that level again and again and again is pretty amazing. And you were in Kansas City. There must have been some crazy Chiefs fans there.
Oh, yeah. I'm still a Chiefs fan. The way I look at it is I get to enjoy, and it's always more fun when we win, but we lost, like, it was 2 years ago, we lost the Raiders on Christmas, and it bothered me for the rest of the day. And I'm like, why do I care so much? And I realized it's because I put so much I get so much joy when they win.
Yeah.
So I stopped connecting my joy to the outcome of the game and connecting my joy with that me and my partner get to watch the game together on Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so because of that, the Chiefs got to play literally, with exception of the Pro Bowl and the bye week, every single Sunday, or at least once a week, I got to enjoy the Chiefs. They made it to the Super Bowl, which means there wasn't a Sunday I missed.
That's a really cool way of looking at it. I started to play the same game with myself with the Lions. And even in the playoff game, I was like, win or lose, my life is going to be amazing today. And I would tell myself this, and then I would even say to, like, my wife and my mom and my kids are watching the game with me, I'm like, they can lose this game. And they're like, don't say that, you'll jinx it. I'm like, I actually have no bearing on this game. But yeah, I'm preparing myself with the idea that they could lose this game, because I don't want my day to be ruined by some men that aren't associated with me at all having an off day at work. I still want to have a great day the rest of the day today. And so that's kind of the way I prepared myself for it.
I love that. How many times do we let someone else at work who's having a bad day make our day bad?
A lot.
So one of the things I like to tell people is, like, we all have a negative person in our life, right?
Sure.
So I ask you, think of that negative person. You got that person in your mind, Matt?
I do. I'm not going to say who it is.
Don't say who it is. And for your listeners, the question I have is, does that person think that they're negative?
No.
How do you know you're not that person?
Ooh. Oh, man. You just pulled some mind trick stuff on that one.
I had to check myself, because during my suspension, I think of myself as a positive person, but I was super negative. The dude who took my spot, let's just say I wasn't rooting for him. Like, I had become this negative person. I became a hater. And I realized that. And I realized when I wasn't in a good place, it was hard for me to see someone else in a good place. Mm. And now that I'm in a good place, and if someone comes at me and they're not happy or they're trying to tear me down, I don't even let it affect me. I can't expect them to be good with me if they're not in a good place themselves. That has nothing to do with me, because no one can make me not be a hater when I was in a bad place. That was my own personal deal.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And that gets back to that piece of love I was talking about. You now can compassionately see this person who's in a bad place and understand, like, man, they're just in a bad place. This isn't about me. I'm not going to let this affect me, but I feel bad for that person that's hurting. Well, Cam, I know you got a couple of strategies, not just a couple, you got a lot of strategies, because you do a lot of happiness things to keep yourself in a really positive place. What are your couple go-to happiness strategies that help you continue to win at such a high level in your life right now?
I am very selective of who I let around me. Like, even on social media, there's people I love, I just won't follow. If I have to follow them, they're on mute. I try to remove negative people out of my life. I do a morning practice every morning. I've been doing it since July 26th of 2021. I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my car. I'm grateful for my washer. I'm grateful for my dryer. These are two different things. You can be grateful for everything. Growing up, didn't have a washer and dryer at my house. We had to go to the laundromat every 3 or 4 days because we didn't have a car. And if you went longer than that, you would have to make 2 trips. So the fact that I can do laundry in my home, flex. So I write everything on my list, and I challenge people to do this for 30 days. I do it every day. You don't have to do this. And the reason why you do it is every day, if you start your day looking for things to be grateful for, if you look for 10 things, the first 2 weeks is pretty easy. After 2 weeks, what I started to do is I started to look for things to be grateful for throughout my day, store it in my memory, call it delayed gratification, so I can write my list faster the following morning.
Because you don't repeat on your list of 10. It's always new, right?
Always new.
So it's 10 new grateful things that you've never written before. And you've been doing this for like years?
July 26, 2021.
So then you're starting to say, I'm grateful for that person who said that thing yesterday. And I'm grateful for this thing that happened yesterday, right?
That's also another thing I do. I don't add anyone's name to the list unless I reach out to them that day out of context and tell them that I appreciate them in some way. It can be an I love you text. It can be like, hey man, thinking about you. A lot of times I just send like a puppy gif. I love gifs.
I love puppies too.
And who doesn't, right? So, because the reason why I did that is I didn't want to just start adding random names to my list without intentions.
Oh man. So these are some really powerful happiness tricks. One, counting your gratefuls. Two, telling people you appreciate them, which is growing relationships, and you're spreading the joy. They're starting to feel good. You feel good that they feel good. Like this is an upward spiral of happiness, man.
Oh yeah. So I've been sending gifts to friends for years now. They don't know why, but they're sending them back.
Oh, they're sending you gifts back. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because gratitude's contagious.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Cam, I love who you are, man. I love your story. I love the way that you're inspiring the world. You inspired me today. I'm sure there's somebody listening that wants to be more in your world. How can people get in touch with you?
First of all, I would just like to say I'm not special by any means. It's literally, we're all tofu. You just add the seasoning on it. I'm tofu. Also vegan. But you can find me at Cam F. Awesome everywhere and camfawesome.com. I'm a keynote speaker.
Awesome. Well, Cam, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Have a good one.
We had so many great takeaways today from Cam. He talked about how we can really build ourselves from unconfident, afraid even, into a champion with our mindset. We talked about humility and how false humility could actually be a bad thing. Cam reminded us that no one cares about your problems. And that's empowering because that means you're the one that gets to fix them. We talked about how changing his name to Awesome was a declaration of his own self-worth. And at the end, we talked about some daily practices that can make us happier, like counting new blessings, 10 new gratitudes a day, or connecting with friends and telling them that we love them with a puppy emoji. So I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. Where in your life have you been playing small and afraid of what others might think? How could you start to speak more positively about yourself right now and own your awesome? If this episode hit home for you, I want you to hit subscribe with Good Mood Revolution so that you get these good vibes every single week. I got to tell you, I'm so happy that you're part of the revolution. We'll see you next week.